Looking for a head coach at Texas Tech? Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We've got Jack Bell on the line from Viva the Matadors, the SB Nation platform for Texas Tech football as the Red Raiders prepare for the Oklahoma Sooners. Hey, Jack.
How's it going, Mark?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Been busy, to say the least.
Well, let's get right to it then. We'll get past the football because the coaching search is first and foremost, of course. I got to say I was a little bit surprised. So you bring in Matt Wells from Utah State. He goes 4-8, 4-6. He's 8-14 going into this season, not meeting expectations there. There's a win against Houston. The conference schedule a bit uneven in regards to performance, a couple blowout losses in which the team looked really bad. But the overall record, 5-2 going into the Kansas State game. Lose to Kansas State by 1 point, 5-3, get fired. It's not necessarily, I don't think, a record that most people outside of Texas Tech circles would think, okay, the Texas Tech coach is 5-3 and he just lost by 1 point to a decent team. He gets fired.
It's granted to the outside eye, it might look a little strange, but to anyone who's been paying attention to Tech football over the last 3 years, it's been pretty inevitable over the last couple weeks.
Okay. Yeah, this performance against Kansas State in particular, and just kind of going through that, there were a number of times in which Tech could have closed down the deal. They led 24-10 at halftime. There was a Kansas State drive that was key late in the game in which they converted a 3rd and 34 based on a hands to the face penalty. So, my goodness, you're about to get off the field. You don't give up the play. You have a hands to the face that wipes out a 3rd and 34. Couple holding penalties, derailed drives, 2 sacks ended the game against Texas Tech as they were trying to come back. And again, they blow a 14-point lead at halftime. So has it been just more of that type of display that it appear as though the team's disciplined or prepared? And that's, of course, falls at the feet of the head coach.
I think it's been more of the preparedness than anything. If you really look at the body of work, especially over this season, Tech has failed to score in the first quarter in, I believe, at least 3 or 4 games. This game was surprisingly different. You know, they had scored 14 points in the first 3 minutes. And so it looked like we were well on our way. And then everything just kind of fell flat, especially in the second half. The offensive game plan was very bad. There was a lot of mix and matching at the quarterback position with Henry Colombi and Donovan Smith coming in. And from what was apparent to me, it was just that neither quarterback got enough time to kind of get in a rhythm. To get going. And so it's kind of hard when you're just constantly flip-flopping in and out. But I think more or less all of this was pointed to just the not being able to finish games and not really being able to start them very well either. So when you only have maybe one quarter or a quarter and a half where you're performing well, but then, you know, the other 2.5 quarters are a bad product, this is kind of the inevitability of that.
People might be surprised that Cliff Kingsbury only won between 30 and 35% of his games in conference. So He didn't exactly tear it up, but of course, based on his ability on the offensive side of the ball, was a prime candidate in the NFL, and things are working out for him right now.
Absolutely.
People almost would be maybe nearly as surprised, Jack, I think, to know, because I don't know that Texas Tech gets the respect outside Lubbock and outside the conference that is earned long-term, because even though it's been a long dry spell throughout the history of the program, Mike Leach finished in the top 25 5 of his last 6 seasons. So there was a standard set there that it can be done. You can compete for conference championships. You can win 8 and 9 games and finish in the top 25.
It's not out of the realm of possibility at all. There's a big misconception that it's hard to recruit to Lubbock, and I really don't buy into that, and no one in Lubbock really buys into that either. I think a real big thing you can look at, or that a lot of Tech people look at really, is what Matt Campbell's been able to do at Iowa State. And, you know, if you can recruit to Ames, Iowa, then you can definitely recruit to Lubbock, Texas. It's an old excuse, and the Tech faithful aren't going to stand for that excuse much anymore.
Texas Tech at 5-3, 2-3 in the Big 12 as they face Oklahoma. The Sooners, of course, undefeated. Christmas is coming, folks. Shop Amazon. You can use the link in the description section below to help us build the channel. Same shopping experience, doesn't cost you one penny. Jack Bell's on the line from Viva the Matador. You can catch their work on SB Nation. Jack, when you look at this football team, obviously, you know what? I'll back up just a second. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
As we continue on the coaching search topic, who are people hoping for? Who do you think the viable candidates are?
Well, right now there seem to be two in an upper echelon. That would be Jeff Traylor from UTSA and Sonny Dykes from SMU. Right now, those two definitely have the leading edge. Obviously, Sonny Dykes is going to have name recognition. His dad, Spike, coached Texas Tech from 1986 to 1999 here in Lubbock. Very big name recognition. A lot of people are impressed with what he's done at SMU. And just basically in the last 3 years, really. And that's kind of what a lot of people have pointed to. They just took the last 30 games and kind of compared Matt Wells and Sonny Dykes. In the last 30 games, Matt Wells was 13-17 overall, and Sonny Dykes is 24-6. So there's a big gap there, and a lot of people would welcome Sonny Dykes. Also, Jeff Traylor, mostly because of his recruiting ties in the state of Texas. Long-time high school coach, won a few state championships in Gilmer in East Texas. So everyone respects him and his recruiting ties. So we know that if he can recruit people to go to UTSA, then Texas Tech is definitely not hard of a sell either.
I'm going to credit Matt Wells with this, come to his defense just slightly. I'm guessing that the competition over the 30 games a bit more difficult for Matt Wells than it was for Sonny Dykes, although the American
100%.
Conference has been a good and by far the best Group of Five conference, but still a difference there. Got 100%. Jack Bell on the line from Viva the Matadors. Catch his work and everybody else there at SB Nation, talking Texas Tech football with Oklahoma coming up. Is there excitement over the remainder of the season? I know that the stretch drive is difficult, starting with this game. The team is one win away from bowl eligibility. Are Tech fans looking more forward to the coaching search to get on with a future, or trying to salvage something for this season?
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of that. I think a lot of people are interested to see what Sonny Cumbie can do as the interim coach, because he's definitely a name that's also been thrown around. And people are seeing if he leads the team and the team responds well to him, then his name could shoot up that coaching search board as well. So I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I definitely think that only having one game until bowl eligibility, Tech's been known to knock off people here and there, not necessarily in Norman, but, you have an Iowa State team and Oklahoma State still to play in Lubbock, and even a Baylor team to play in Waco. So I think that there's definitely still some hope that Tech can get bowl eligible and then give Sonny Cumbie that fifth game to kind of audition in this process.
We know the names Roderick Thompson at running back, and certainly Eric Azukanma at wide receiver. Those were guys that were all Big 12 type performers coming into the season. The quarterback situation, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler Shook won the job out of the gate, but the last time I saw him on the field, he threw a pick six against Texas, and I think that was the end of his undoing, and Henry Columbia had taken over there. But fill us in.
So earlier in that Texas game, Shuck had rolled out on a quarterback keeper and dove into the end zone and scored on a quarterback keeper. When he dove into the end zone, he landed on his non-throwing shoulder and separated that shoulder. They're hoping possibly to get him back for maybe the last game of the year. If that happens, I would expect him to play in that last game. But right now it's Henry Columbia's team. And, we've seen glimpses of Donovan Smith coming in. And so I think I would look for more like a 65-35 in terms of Columbia to Donovan Smith at this point in time going forward.
So Oklahoma's not exactly been dominating teams in the Big 12. They've been skating by even the likes of Kansas last week, trailing by 10 points late in the third quarter. So there is a possibility there. There's hope of staying close, pulling off the upset. A lot of people are going to be watching this game, of course, because the Sooners are where they are. Who are those players on both sides of the ball that people can look out for the Red Raiders?
I think, as you mentioned, Sir Roderick Thompson is going to be huge in this game for Tech. I also think Eric Ezukama should be a main target as well. At the receiver position, you can also look for Kalen Geiger, the transfer from Troy. He's been stepping up very recently in the past couple games. He's had a couple of good ones. On the defensive side of the ball, Tech's going to have a lot of injuries in this game. A couple of D linemen, a couple of safeties, and DBs out as well. So we're kind of be strapped when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. But on the offensive side, you're going to have most of your guys that have been playing for the year. I think with this team, the line is going to be challenged very much so, especially on the offensive line. That's where we saw a huge letdown in this past game against Kansas State. So I think there's been a couple of challenges issued to this offensive line to kind of get their act together, and we'll see what happens. But I would look out for Roderick Thompson, Ezukama, Geiger, and just kind of looking on the defense side. I would see just how there's going to be a lot of different guys floating in and out. So just to see if they can mesh or not, and we'll see where it goes from there.
As you mentioned, Jack, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Baylor. Ouch. Backloaded schedule for the Red Raiders trying to get to bowl eligibility at 5-3. And before we let you go, Jack, any personal preference on the coaching search? Or are you pretty good with all three of the main candidates?
I like all three personally. I think it's going to be a little difficult to get Sonny Dykes away from SMU with just what he's built there. And it's pretty impressive what he's been able to do to turn around that program. It's also can be the same with Traylor. I'd be fine with any of the three. But like I said, right now, depending on or before these games start, before Cumbie gets to really make his audition, those other two are definitely head and shoulders above the rest of the field for sure.
Texas Tech looking for a coach, looking for a sixth win to get to bowl eligibility. Jack Bell joining us from Viva the Matadors on SB Nation. Jack, we always appreciate you stopping by. Good luck this weekend. You never know.
Absolutely. It's always a good time. Thanks for having me, Mark.